Asia, I actually don't mean Japan. I mean countries like China and Malaysia and the Philippines, and especially in this case, India. And what I really mean is the offshoring of white-collar jobs to places like these. The offshoring of white-collar work to places like India is, to my mind, exaggerated in the short term. If you look at the numbers, the impact of offshoring hasn't been that great. However, in the long term, the impact of outsourcing, I think, will be larger than anybody recognizes. And the reason for that is relatively simple. First of all, if you take a typical Indian computer programmer, and I'm going to use India as the example of Asia because I've spent a lot of time there. If you think about the example of the Indian computer programmer, that person makes maybe $15,000, $16,000 a year for work that in the United States you'd get paid $60,000 a year for. So they're making 1/4 of the wages in the United States to do the exact same work. So that gives India a certain advantage, particularly when the people doing that work have degrees in computer science, have degrees in engineering. Now, the reason that I think that offshoring is going to have a bigger impact than we expect is because of some basic math. Let me stack up some numbers for you. If 15% of India's population makes it to the middle class, that's 150 million people. India has 1 billion people. So if 85% of India's population gets left behind, you've got 150 million people who are new entrants into the global labor force. Now think about that. 150 million is more than the entire population of Japan. The entire population of Japan. And that's if 85% of India gets left behind. Take the United States. The United States is a bigger country than Japan. It also has a bigger economy. But last month, at work in the United States were 146 million people. So again, if 85% of India's population doesn't make it to this new world, just gets left behind, living in villages, working in agriculture, whatever, you have more talented, ambitious, upper middle class Indians than you have citizens of the world's second largest economy and workers in the world's first largest economy. Second fact that's interesting about Asia is that by the year 2010, India will be the largest English-speaking country in the world, not the United States. And English, for better or worse, has become the default language in the global economy. And finally, you think about the cost of communication between North America and India or between Japan and India. It's essentially free. It's zero. It's just a few pennies. So if you put that all together, here's what you find. 150 potentially middle-class, well-educated, upper-middle-class people who speak perfect English and are connected to North America and Japan for free. I'm sorry, that's just a big deal. That's going to have a huge impact. And the impact that it's having is that it's making routine work a commodity. Routine white-collar work a commodity. And that word routine is very significant. By routine, I mean any work you can reduce to a script, to a spec sheet, to a formula, to a series of steps that has a right answer. That is certain kinds of white-collar work. It's certain kinds of accounting, it's certain kinds of computer programming, it's actually many kinds of computer programming, it's certain kinds of law, it's certain kinds of financial analysis. If you can write down the steps and say to somebody, do these 5 things and get me the correct answer, that work is disappearing from countries like this. It's just racing across fiber optic cables underneath oceans to wherever in the world it can get done the cheapest. This is what happened with manufacturing work. Japan has a powerful manufacturing economy, but it doesn't do any routine manufacturing. All the routine manufacturing is being done in China and elsewhere in Asia. It does high-level manufacturing, but no routine manufacturing. It's the same thing with routine white-collar work. Routine white-collar work is racing to whoever can provide it the cheapest. What does that mean? If we go back to our metaphor, this is the routine side. This side is routine. It gets offshored, leaving people in Japan and in the United States and in the UK and in Australia and throughout Western Europe to compete with these kinds of abilities. That is Asia. Remember the 3 reasons